Hey guys, it's been a while since we've done a video, but I've been getting back into playing a bit of poker after having a bit of a break. Was super burnt out for a couple of weeks, um, maybe even more than that. But yeah, I'm slowly getting back into it, and I thought what might be interesting is to just go over some of the more interesting hands. So I'm going to start with going over the top three hands that I played where I lost the most money. And it's just so you guys have seen a lot of the spots that I've been going through, like the standard plays that I do a lot. And I thought it would be more interesting to show some of the more out there plays that you don't get to see that often. So let's jump into this first hand. Just going to get rid of the HUD. I've been using the HUD a lot less. Oops. There we go. I've been using the HUD a lot less. Now, I've actually been finding that when I do use the HUD, I I've been losing more because oftentimes like I'll be looking for an excuse to call, and the HUD becomes one of those excuses where I really should just be looking at ranges. I think it's much more useful to look at notes rather than HUDs at 2 and now, just because um, we don't we don't have enough information generally from a HUD to make like big decisions on a river. Anyway, so in this hand we open up Ace Jack off under the gun, which is a uh, pretty standard open under the gun, and we get a call out of the big blind. Um, I'm actually going to hide. For the next hands, I'll hide the hold cards. Yeah. So pretend we don't know what he's got. 2 King King doesn't really hit our opponent's range. We've got the ace, so we've got backdoor equity, but a lot of the time, and also just having ace high is going to be good here all the time. We know that the the button's going to be calling with suited connectors, maybe some just normal connectors, and pocket pairs. And so we know that if he does call one street from that with that range, we're going to probably put him on pocket pairs, maybe some spades. Very unlikely to be spades, but possibly some spades. And we're most likely going to have to double barrel, at least on this board. So I start off by betting quite large. So because I only really want to be double barreling, and I'm going to have to shut down by the river unless I hit something big. I'm just going to bet big twice, and so we can hopefully, if any pocket pairs call this street, then on the next street they'll most likely fold. So we do get a call here, and then on the next street we hit a backdoor flush draw. At this point, our equity is quite high because we also hit the backdoor straight draw, and it's much less likely that he's calling with a queen. With a flush draw here because the queens come up. So really, he's only really calling with Jack 10 or worse, and it's just so unlikely. So him having the flush here, we can also bet quite big, and with the hopes that he does have the pocket pair. Again, very unlikely that he's calling with the king or the king queen. Those are pretty much the hands that he's calling with. He's got king queen, king jack, king 10. If he's calling here, if he does have a king, and yeah, so we're more worried about the pocket pairs at this point because that's much more likely to happen. So again, we bet quite big. I'm sure the sizing would fold out any pocket pair, and plus if he does have a king, we have backdoor equity with both the straight and the flush draw, which we kind of want to be making the pot bigger anyway. He does call. And so at this point, with the us hitting the flush, I was thinking we don't have the nut flush because the board's paired. However, he hasn't re-raised us on any street, so it's kind of unlikely that he has the Kind of unlikely that he's got the twos, like has a full house of the twos. He can have the king queen, because and he wouldn't be raising the king queen because he wants us to hit the flush. And then he can also have the flush draw himself with a jack, jack 10 or something like that, which again unlikely to raise because he's got such a good hand on the turn, and also because there's a chance that we have a set. And so we're kind of in a tricky spot, but I think we can value bet and get any of the king X, any of the lower spades to call us. And then we're kind of more worried about him having king queen, and that's really the only hand we're worried about here. So I bet quite large to get the kings to call us, and any of the like jack of spades, 10 of spades to call us. Possibly even mainly jack of spades, 10 of spades. And then we get re-raised all in. And at this point, the only hand that he can really have is king queen, and it makes sense for him to have king queen or possibly a rivered set of fours. Very unlikely. It's even more unlikely. He could still have the twos, but I think it's quite unlikely given how he played it. And yeah, so it's really he's only got king X, and he can also be raising with the jack of spades, 10 of spades. It's much less likely, but yeah, I was more thinking like something like king 10 would raise here. King 10 with the 10 of spades could possibly raise here. But to be honest, like I should have just put him on king queen and with his re-raise and just folded. But I didn't end up calling, and he did have the king queen. So we're a bit unlucky, but at the same time, there's this. He's only really raising with king queen or boats here, and I should have realized that in the moment. It was kind of a loose call by me, I think. Even though we have, we've got the ace of spades, still could have made that fold. All right, so the next hand we have 9-10 suited, and we are in hijack. I open. I think it's pretty standard to open 9-10 suited even under the gun. And we get min raise 3-bet, min 3-bet from the button. Now, min 3-bet, after talking to a whole bunch of people, including Helena, it was suggested sort of consensus is that we should be treating a min 3-bet as just a normal 3-bet. And to be honest, I shouldn't really be calling a normal 3-bet with 9-10. However, when we get another player in, we get a lot better odds. So normally I would not call 9-10 suited, even to this small sizing. And sure, that might be exploitable, but like I'm opening, especially if I'm opening from these positions here under the gun, hijack, I'm going to have a lot of hands that are fine to call 3-bets or even 4-bets. So I'm not too worried about being exploited. And anyway, it's like too many players for people to exploit me anyway. And yeah, so I do decide to call, and we hit a very interesting flop. With this flop, like with this guy raising, the reason why we give him a normal three betting range is because most of the time they do just have a normal 3-betting range, and they just want to keep you in and raise the pot, but then also have the betting lead so they can decide how much. Like if they miss, they can like bet small. Like they usually do if they miss, they do like a 2-cent bet on the flop, 2-cent on the turn, and then if you haven't raised, they'll do like a big river bet, and to get you to fold off most of your range. Because like if you hit something, then you're going to be betting, and so yeah, a lot of the time these guys, when they hit, they'll bet, but if they don't hit, they won't bet. And so we we hit. So yeah. So what happens is, yeah, because we hit such a good hand, I don't really want to give anyone else a chance to draw if they've got the queen or jack of diamonds, um, which is if they're going to be continuing on this board anyway, it's likely that if they continue, they're going to be having the queen or jack. And so yeah, I decide to bet half pot. And now that I'm thinking about it, it's very unlikely that they're going to have queen jack unless they have queen jack suited of diamonds, which is really the only hand that they can have here that beats me at this point in time. So I think what I really should have done is I really should have checked around to Spirito, because people aren't going to be calling very. Actually, that's not true. Like this guy in the big blind can be calling queen jack off, and I guess this guy can also be raising with king jack off if he has quite a wide range. But it's kind of like tricky in such a like in a min raise 3-bet pot to range our opponents. So I thought it'd be better to play safe, and if someone does have a queen or a jack of diamonds, I can start raising now. And then we get re-raised by the guy on the button, and it pretty much means like I can put him on ace king, aces kings, or the queen jack of diamonds. Now in hindsight, what I should have done here is because there's only one combo that he can have that beats us realistically, he's not going to be opening jack 8 or queen 8 of diamonds. Very, very, very unlikely. Because he's only got one combo that beats us, we really should have raised him here after the big blind folds. Because if there is a chance that he's got the ace king or aces or kings, he's just going to be putting it all in anyway. There's nothing that's going to stop him from getting it in on the flop with that. It's just such a low chance that we've hit anything on this board in the hijack. Like realistically, the only two hands we can have or three hands we can have are like 9-8 suited, 10-9 suited, jack 10 suited, and queen jack suited. 4 hands, sorry. And so yeah, calling here was a mistake for sure. But to be fair, I was kind of like, we've pretty much got the nuts here. And so like if it was kind of like I kind of want to keep him in and just continue betting. But I didn't really that didn't really pan out. I was kind of like kind of scared of just the queen jack, which I really shouldn't have been. It was kind of like in my mind the only hand that he could have that would actually raise me. So I was a bit confused when he wasn't just calling down with his aces or kings. And then him bidding 10 here, again, I should be just shoving. Should just be getting it all in on the flop, or at least raising the turn. I raise way too small here. I give him a price if he's got ace king, aces or kings to just stay in and actually get more equity. He calls, king comes. Now all the ace king, all the aces, all the kings are good. And then he just shoves. So it's really, and he basically reveals that he's got ace king, aces or kings. So it's really a big mistake by me to let it get to this point. I really should have put him all in, like made him have to go all in by either the flop turn or turn. So that was a pretty big mistake from me. And then the last hand we played, we get raised from the small blind. We hit top pair. He checks. We bet 6 cents. So here, this one's a little bit tricky. And the reason is a lot of the times from the small blind, players are going to be checking back any value hands except for like monster value. So he's not going to be checking back a lot of the time ace 10 plus. He's going to be betting ace 10 plus, but he might not bet his well, maybe even say ace 8 plus he's going to be betting, but he's not going to bet his lower a6 some of the time. He's not going to be betting sixes. He's going to be betting draws and air a lot of the time in this position. So when he checks here, we know that he's got some sort of value, and with the ace, we can basically say, okay, he doesn't have value that's good enough to bet. We can ask ourselves, does he have an ace, or he's got a 6 or a 5? And sometimes 5s are even betting here. So we bet, he calls a small bet, and here we pick up like quite a bit of equity. As you can see, we've got 86%, and so we kind of want to be raising quite a bit just in case that our opponent has an ace. Because ace or even a 6, he's still going to be calling a 6 if we bet like half pot, and an ace will also call half pot or 75%. So we end up betting half pot here to keep him along with his ace or the 6. He calls, and then we get an ace on the river. So this makes it much less likely that he's got an ace himself. As you can see, with 94% to 6%, and it's much more likely that he's hit a 6. He has a 6 in his hand, and so we can think about sizings that a 6 might call. So maybe with 2 aces, it's much less likely that we've hit as well. So we can probably bet around like 28 cents or 24 cents, 23 cents, something like that, in order to get a 6 to call, or even maybe a 5 to call if he's a bit looser. But what ends up happening is he donks out for pot and a little bit less in pot. So at this point, I'm a little bit confused because I feel like what this actually shows is it's a lot more likely that he's got like pocket 10s to kings, because like he said, oh, this guy doesn't have aces, but he's still betting into me 2 streets. Most likely he's got a 6 or air himself, So betting here 46. That's what it made me think that he thinks I have, and he's repping that kind of hand. Sure, he can also have the a6, like ace king, or like the a6 that wouldn't be betting. So like he can have ace 9 to basically ace 8 or ace 9, and be betting the river for value. But with those 2 hands, it doesn't make as much sense to do that. So he's either got 10s plus, or he's got he's been slow playing a value hand since the beginning. Like you check back a value hand, like ace6, ace 5s, a set of 6s or 5s on the flop, and so like weighing up all of those, I'm sort of like, well, it's much more likely that he's got a pocket pair here that wouldn't bet because of the ace, but it's going to be calling down. So it's kind of a tricky one, because if he's donking here and he has the pocket pairs, it's kind of like, I think he would just call instead of like he'd give us initiative and let us do the bet sizing, and then he'd call depending on our size. So I think I should have read into this and put him on a better hand than I did. I think because the flush was so close, I thought my hand was better than it was. It's still pretty good, but we ended up calling, and he has a6. So he flopped a value hand and slow played it, which isn't the smartest thing to do, I don't think, because if with your value hands, you generally want to be betting out. Like I'm still going to be calling large bets with my ace, and then on this river he could probably even almost consider stacking me on the turn or the river, but because of what's happened, it's like, yeah, it works some of the time. Like this time it worked, but I think it's less likely to work. You can get a lot more money out of people. He only got 70 cents out of me for a hand that I was highly favored to win. You can definitely stack people in this situation if you are the ace 6 holder. Cool. So yeah, so those were the 3 biggest losses I had. I might just go over really quick the 3 biggest wins I had as well, just so you guys can get an idea of how I'm playing these hands, and then also if you have any advice on how you'd get more money out of my opponents, how I can get more money out of my opponents, that would be interesting to hear as well. So we opened 4s, and we cold call 4s and the cutoff, and we flop a set 4-way. So this is kind of a tricky spot because people can have better hands. There's nothing really else on the board we need to be scared of. It gets checked, and then the initial pre-flop raiser checks. So when this guy checks, it basically gives either us or the button initiative to bet. And I really want to start building a pot here, but I know from having been in multi-way pots with a set so often that oftentimes if you don't bet, it just gets checked around because everyone's scared. And then if you bet too big, like even half pot, everyone respects your bet too much and everyone just folds. So what I found is that, especially on boards like this where there's not many draws, it's much better to bet just min bet, and what will happen is it gives everyone else a chance to try and bluff. And it's kind of surprising, but it happens quite often in multi-way pots. If someone sees everyone else's bets bet nothing and then someone's bet really small, they'll be like, oh, no one's got anything, I can steal. And so I bet 4 cents. We get 1 fold. This guy obviously had nothing. This guy raises us, which is really cool. And this guy folds. So basically we folded out the 2 people that have nothing. This guy raising us is a really good sign. It means that he's probably hit something on this board, or he's got quite a strong hand. We can put him on, if he's raising us, we can put him on like 2 pairs. We can put him on sets himself. Again, very unlikely. Most likely 2 pairs or a 10x. 2 pairs, 10x, 7x, something like that. When the 6 comes, I guess he could also have 5-6 as well. So when the 6 comes, that's pretty good news for us because it's hit. It's not a scare card for him at all. And it's actually given him more equity if he did have the draw. Like he's like, oh look, I've hit a 6 and I have 6-5. So I think when that happens, I think people are actually more likely to call a raise because they think their equity's improved even though it hasn't. So that's a good sign enough for me to be like, all right, let's get some more money in the pot. And we raise like quite large. We raise almost 4 times actually. 40. Oh no, it's like 3.2 or 3.25. And he calls, which is even more awesome. That means on the river we're going to be trying to stack him no matter what. 3 comes in. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 is there, and so this kind of scares me a little bit, but at the same time I think if he had the straight, we would have already been put all in. Just based off how other players have been playing it. When they have the straight draw, it's much better to go all in on the flop or the turn to get us to fold our worst holdings. So like say 7s or 10s here, even over pairs we're sometimes folding. And like a lot of players will do that. So I think it's kind of unlikely that he actually has the 5 here, and it's much more likely that he's got say a 2 pair or a set, or overcards, or something else. Yeah. And so what I decide to do is he checks to us, so I decide to go all in, and he calls, and he's got 10-7, which is cool. Good news for us. And I mean, he can think we have a pocket pair or whatever as well, but kind of a loose call from him, and in a way maybe a little bit loose from me, but I think it's quite a low chance that he has to have the 5-6, precisely, and calling out of the big blind kind of a little bit loose to call 5-6. Or I don't know. It's only one hand that he can have, basically. Yeah, so that was cool. We got that. Next hand was tens. Same situation. Someone raises, we call. We flop a set. We get a continuation bet, which I'm pretty happy with, as it means that he's not scared of the 10 high board, and a lot of the time he's either got a draw or overpair or a 10. So I decide to raise. If he's if he's betting on this board, he's often going to be calling any sort of raise that we do. He calls, 7 comes in. We're not really scared of 8 jack or any sort of 8 from his range. He can have 8s, but I don't even think they call our re-raise, and I don't think they bet on the flop either. So the 7 is not really a scare card for us at all. So we're going to continue pretty big. We kind of want to keep in his jack queen draw and make him think we're still looking, sort of like we haven't hit. But basically with this sizing, we're making it so that we can get it all in with a pot size bet on the river. He raises us, and at this point there's no possible better hand they can have except for jack 8, which he doesn't open. So yeah, basically we are shoving, and we get called by kings. Awesome. Easy game. And then the last one was, I think it was another set. So this was in 1,000 hands, so I think we're quite lucky hitting sets. I think it was all in like the first few hands I played, like first 200 hands I hit like 3 sets, and then the rest I was just card dead. So what happens here? Oh, we got a min raise. I must have missed that min raise actually, but we should have bet 8 here, 8 cents. Yeah, we flop a set. We want to, in multi-way pots, want to be betting quite small, if there's not that many draws. In this case, there's a flush draw, so we can bet kind of like half pot, or around half pot, or more if we want to. There's a couple of draws on board, but unlikely to have the queen. I opt to do this again where everyone's checked round, so unlikely to have anything, even though we have the betting lead. It's like the pot is so small, people will oftentimes lead out. So I basically want someone else to give me some action. So I'm going to give these guys another chance to bet. We get this guy to bet 2 cents, and everyone calls. So that basically makes me think no one's got anything, or they have maybe a bad queen or a 9. Flush draws will generally raise here. When the jack comes in, it gives like a 10 a shot at betting, and so I think if there was a jack 10 or a 10 king, they also would have bet on a previous, like they would have raised it because they want people to fold. And so I want any 10s that have been left over that isn't king 10 to start paying for their draw now. And so I bet quite big, and we get a call from the big blind, which is cool. And then with the 2 coming in, basically it means that, if he does have king 10, which definitely doesn't at this point, I don't think, we can stack him. If he's got, but it's much less likely that he's got king 10. It's much more likely that he's got a a 9, a queen, or maybe a missed draw, missed 10, possibly even a jack. And so I decide to bet an amount that I think most of those hands will call, which is 60. So I'm not targeting here the 10. I'm more targeting a queen or a 9 here. I think with the 2 coming and him being a fish, there's kind of more of a chance that he will call me with any sort of value, especially since there's like two missed flush draws there. The straight draw was kind of hard to hit. It's not really in. It's like the bottom of my range. And he's been calling since the flop. And he called my bigger bet on the turn, so he can have queen jack or 9 jack or something like that on queen 9. And then he raises me, which I'm like, okay, that's cool. We call, and he's got queen 4. Awesome. Cool. Oh, well, thanks for watching, guys. That's 6 hands that I played today. Let me know if you had any thoughts. Obviously, these are just the hands I showed you. Like, the ones that I lost. I wouldn't play these hands the same way every time. It's you know how poker is. It's sort of like a combination of your current, how you're feeling, what your current mental game is, and a whole bunch of other stuff that makes you call or fold. But yeah, if you saw anything interesting with like bet sizings and things like that, I'd be keen to talk about. So just leave a comment below if you do have any insights into those. And thanks for watching. Hope you guys are doing well, and I'll see you later.